All right, guys, welcome back to the next episode of Wide Open, the podcast. I'm Tony Gonzalez, and I appreciate you stopping by. Today, I got a great guest. All you soccer fans out there are really going to love this one, but I've been looking forward to this.
Really?
Yeah.
You're the
looking
one.
Forward to
Okay,
this.
good.
Alexi Lalas. Been looking forward to this because, you know, and I've known you, we both work at Fox now,
Yep.
and so I've had a chance to spend some time with you through that, but I've been following you obviously for years, knew about you, but I never knew in depth about what you've done and how you've done it.
It's not that deep. It's not like an Olympic pool. It's more of a suburban above ground type of pool depth, I think.
No, shit, man, you've done a lot, and we're going to get all into it. I mean, you wear so many hats, which I think is incredible, especially being an athlete. There is a lot of depth there. Come on.
I don't know. I got to keep busy. That's it. Just got to keep busy. I turned 50 this year, so
50.
I'm trying to do as much as I possibly can as I turn this corner. So
See, well, we're going to get into that because when you turn corner, you're constantly turning corners. But before we get into it, we always talk about the background of people, when they come on the show, how they came up, and you're from Michigan.
Yep.
Correct. And I read that your father was I don't know. Is your father still
He's still alive?
Okay, yeah. My wife's gonna hate me for that. She's always like, "You need to learn more about these people."
So stupid. I should have known that. No, yes, he's thankfully he's still alive and healthy. My father is
a poet,
great,
though, right?
No, my mom's the poet,
mom's a poet,
and my dad is and was for many years a professor. I grew up in a very whatever the opposite of an athletic household is what I grew up in. It was focused on studies. Dad is a professor, mom is a writer, very academic type of oriented thing. But that's not to say that they weren't proud or encouraging. As a matter of fact, I think they saw that when their firstborn had an affinity for sports growing up in the suburbs of Detroit, this was something that was going to keep him out of trouble. And this was going to something that was going to excite me, and that I was good for it. But to say that they had visions of their firstborn being a professional anything in terms of sports would not be correct. They had ideas and dreams of other things, and as is often the case, you take a turn here or there, and luckily it worked out.
So when you're growing up, though, who introduced you to the sports then? Because if you don't come, like the same thing with me. When I grew up, I was definitely not a sport. Me and my brother are the first people to ever play sports in our family. How did you get started in it?
So my mom's from Jersey and my dad's from Athens, Greece. He came over to go to university here in the United States, met my mom. And what ended up happening was we would go back and forth between Detroit and Athens, Greece. And as a young kid, I went to a school back in Athens when we were living there, a British school. And obviously from a soccer perspective, in Greece, I was immersed in a culture where soccer is king, and that was my first introduction. But I was also that American kid, redhead kid, didn't speak Greek, and I would go down to the corner where they played in a sandlot, the proverbial sandlot type of existence for sports and for soccer in Greece, and I would sit there and I'd wait weeks, and then eventually they didn't have a player come one day, so they said, "Oh, throw the American in, but don't let him play anywhere on the field. Let's put him in goal first." And then I started to learn some words, and then somebody didn't show up, and eventually I got to play out. But that whole existence and an introduction to soccer, that's where it started. But then for most of my childhood, I was back in the suburbs of Detroit doing what a lot of kids do. I did mom and dad coaching and orange peels and juice boxes at halftime and all that kind of stuff. But also being from Michigan, where the law is you have to play hockey. Most of my time was actually spent on ponds and in flooded driveways and backyard rinks, and then organized hockey. Most of my year actually was spent playing hockey as opposed to soccer.
So soccer started when you were 11 years old. Right?
It was really, from an organized perspective.
And that's late, though, isn't it?
Nowadays they come out of the womb and they got to throw a ball in front of them and all that, and that gets into whole specialization and all that stuff. But I played a lot of sports growing up. We are of that time where that was much more, I guess, acceptable. But I guarantee that I would not have been the soccer player had I not had a lot of hockey, certainly, and other sports, and been exposed to those other sports. It made me a better soccer player, and I believe soccer made me a better hockey player.
You know what? And I played football and basketball, among other things. We went from Huntington Beach, surfed and skateboarded and do all that. That is what a lot of these kids today, I think, are lacking. You talk about you have your two children. If if you want to be a great athlete, you need to play everything, and then you'll be drawn to the one that is right for you, I guess.
Yeah.
And same thing. So for you, obviously hockey, because you were an unbelievable hockey player as well.
It was okay.
Did you have a choice? Did you have a choice when you got older?
I certainly could have gone on and played collegiately when it came to hockey, but something drew me to the game of soccer. I mentioned the fact that I spent much of my childhood going back and forth between Greece and the United States, so I had an idea that certainly my world was bigger than the suburbs of Detroit and bigger than the United States. And that thread that connected me as a 10, 11-year-old kid running around in Michigan with a 10 or 11-year-old kid on the other side of the world, that connection was soccer. And I really enjoyed not just the game itself, but the freedom that it gave you and the international aspect of it and the freedom to kind of do what you wanted. There weren't as many rules. There weren't as much, but there wasn't as much involvement when it came to coaches. Things weren't as set when you went out and on the soccer field, and I enjoyed that freedom that it gave me.
Yeah. Now, when you were growing up, though, where you said your parents, obviously it's not a sports family, but I'm assuming they go to your games. Did you get a lot of support from them? And with that, what kind of advice did they give you? Who was were they mentors to you? Who was that
they couldn't obviously sit down and talk to me about tactics or how I played, but you don't necessarily need that. So number one, they were supportive. They were supportive of being active, and this was the way I was going to be active. Number two, they were preaching balance and understanding that you don't get one without the other, and that other is academics, and understanding that there is a price to pay for all of those things. The time that you spend doing this has to coincide with the time that you spend doing that, and you don't get one without the other. As much as I at times didn't want that balance to be, or wanted the balance to be completely different. So that was really important. And then, like I said before, they recognized that this was something that their child loved, had a passion for, and was good, and they wanted to encourage me. I love that, there's that commercial out there where and it's been around for a while, where that mom, you see her taking her kid through all of these different things and trying out every different thing. And my parents really encouraged me to be creative. So the writer in my mom, the musician in my mom, the professor in my dad, and then add all those other things. And they knew trying different things was going to lead to not a necessarily. They didn't care about making me a better soccer player. They cared about making me a better person. And I certainly have my faults. I'm not a perfect person, but the gift that they gave me of being able to function in that world and try as many different things as possible, that's something that lasts with me today. And it helped me, once again, that helped me be a better soccer player, I firmly believe, than if I had been razor focused and specialized from an early age in one thing, which we know more often than not leads to burnout. Yeah.
So you take all that talent though, and you get to high school and you had great success in hockey, soccer, but then you're also in the choir and you're a musician as well. First of all, how the hell do you have all that time? And second of all, do you ever think that maybe if you would have focused on maybe just one or two things, do you think you would have been even better? Not that you could have gotten better. I mean, you had an unbelievable career. But
I certainly think that I spread myself out, and therefore, because while we can talk about the perils of specialization, at some point I think in order to be great, you do have to focus on one thing. Having said that, and you can attest to this, the life of an athlete, while at times there are challenges that others don't have to deal with, and very unique challenges, it is a pretty cushy type of existence. It's a wonderful existence, and it offers you and affords you things that 99.9% of the population don't get in terms of time and opportunities that don't have to do with, in our case, that 90 minutes of running around on the field. And so I knew from an early age that in order to be good in that 90 minutes, I had to have other things in my life that excited me. And so I was lucky enough to discover music and be encouraged, like we said, in music. And it's something that's lasted with me throughout my life. But even in high school, I would go from playing in the band, the garage band type of thing, or talent shows or something like that, to playing in or just singing in chamber singers and doing a cappella and doing barbershop and doing all that, to hockey practice or to soccer practice, to all of those different things. And then all, normal traditional type of education, science, math, all that kind of stuff, language.
So when you're going through all this in high school, what you just said, it was kind of cushy. Was it all cushy for you? I mean, was there ever, if you could tell me a time what was your lowest point, I guess, until high school where you learned the biggest lesson?
So when I came out of high school, and at that time, the pathway was the collegiate way for soccer. It's changed a lot since then. Now players come out and they're already almost professional at this time. But I knew that I wanted and kind of had to, if I wanted to continue to play soccer, go through the collegiate path. And while I was a big thing in suburban Detroit and in Michigan, it didn't necessarily translate. I didn't get recruited in the way that kids get recruited nowadays, and I certainly didn't have opportunities flying left and right. So I started getting rejected at a lot of places. I mean, I was wallpapering my room with rejection notices from a lot of colleges, and we started to panic. And I say we because my father got on the phone one day and called Rutgers University out in New Jersey, and he got a hold of the coach and said, "Listen, I got this kid. He's 6'4". He's got decent grades, and for Michigan, he's a very good soccer player." The coach, thank God, got him on a good day, and he said, can I see him? So my father and I got in a car and we drove 16 hours out to Rutgers University. I had never been to Rutgers University, exit 9 off the turnpike, let alone to New Jersey ever. I showed up, we stayed for 5 hours. He looked at me and said, "Well, we're going through a rebuilding year. I can invite you to preseason and I can get you into the agriculture school." Now, I grew up in Michigan, but I did not grow up on a farm. But at that point, I was taking anything that they had. We drove back, and I did everything wrong in terms of picking a school, but it changed everything for me because it was a Division I soccer program. Like I said, it was going through a rebirth, if you will, and there were opportunities for young, inexperienced players like me. So it worked out okay. But my dad, exit 9, he kicked me out of the car, and I fell into a very, very different world at a huge school in New Jersey, and I had to fake it until I made it.
Now, when you get to the college, first of all, I think did you really put the rejection letters up on the wall?
Yeah,
you really did that?
I did, yeah. Because they kept coming, and I said, well, the soccer wasn't having any effect. And I wasn't a horrible student, but the soccer was going to have to help me to do something. And nowadays, you'd be seen, and it was just back in the early 80s or mid 80s. You just weren't seen in the way that you can. YouTube didn't exist even to see things from afar. So it was just a function of the times that we live in. And luckily, serendipity, stars aligning type of thing, it worked out okay.
So when you get to Rutgers campus, because I remember back when I got to college, when I got up to Berkeley, there was a lot of guys coming in saying, like, I'm going to the league. That was like a big thing. Like, I'm going to the league. And I remember, I never even crossed my mind. But that was on their mind. Was that on your mind when you got to college, or was it like, hey, I'm going to do this, get a good education, and go do something else?
Being a professional soccer player was something that happened in that I fell into it. And I did not grow up thinking about being a professional soccer player. My wall, other than the rejection notices, but growing up in high school, was populated with hockey players, so Red Wings players, Steve Yzerman, these types of players, and musicians, Def Leppard and Bon Jovi's and these types of things, and Kiss and Zeppelin and all that kind of stuff. These were my heroes. I didn't have heroes that I could relate to from a soccer perspective, and being a professional soccer player was not something in the early 80s, mid 80s that you aspired to be because you didn't see it happening. So when I went to college and I started getting recognition on a national level, being an All-American and that kind of stuff, and people started noticing, then I started to think about, hey, this could possibly be it. But for an American coming at that time, it's not the way that it is now, and that's a good thing because it's progressed and evolved. But it was a much more Wild West type of existence back then.
Yeah, I bet. Tell me about this. So you start having the success. You're an All-American, like you said, and the Olympics come along.
Yep.
And that's kind of the first time America was introduced to you. Yep. And people out there, you don't remember the beard and the hair and all that stuff. I always am struck by people that, and I'm not going to say it. I don't want to say this is how you think, but you're so free. It seems like you're so fearless, and this is why you have no problem trying all these different things. Like for me, back when I was younger, there's no way I could have gone out there with that type of hair and that type of being that different. Where did you learn that from? Has that always been part of you where you just say, it's kind of like, I don't give a shit what you think attitude? Is that what you had back then, or were you just being you?
Well, I definitely was being me in that I was comfortable in the costume. And I use that word specifically because I grew up recognizing that I'm a performer. I've always considered myself a performer, whether it's going on stage from a music perspective or going on the field. And sometimes when you say that in the context of sports, people cringe because it's somehow, people sometimes take that as you don't take it seriously or you're not competitive or you don't want to win. That's not the case at all. I just recognize that I love to go out and to perform in front of people. And I still do that today, working on television. The red light turns on. You go out on a field after you've practiced, rehearsed, which is the exact same thing. You take it out in front of people. I love the reaction that I get from people. It can be good or bad. I don't care if 100,000 people are booing me or cheering me. It really doesn't matter. What I don't want them to do is ignore. There is also a real punk ethos to it, where if you want to spit and throw stuff, that's to me is just as good. I don't need to be loved, but I need to be noticed. And that comes from the whole music background. That comes from the recognition that this is all a performance, and it doesn't mean it's not genuine. It doesn't mean it's not authentic. It doesn't mean it's not honest. But either you're comfortable with that or you're not. And I was comfortable at an early age with that, and something that I really wanted to do because I enjoyed that reaction that you got, whether it was positive or negative.
Now, do you think that's something you can teach? Like you just said, do you think it's nature or is it?
No, I think you can encourage it, but I don't think you can necessarily teach it. I think that there are, especially when it comes to sports, I think oftentimes we try to subdue that, and either individually we try to put it somewhere and lock it away, or others around us want to put it somewhere and lock it away. And I think, but you also have to harness it. You can't let it get away from you. Can't let it get away from you. But I think that encouraging athletes to express themselves and to understand how their personality can help them, not just with what they do from a sports perspective, but who they are. We talk so much about image and brand nowadays and stuff like that. But I think a lot of athletes are scared, and probably rightfully so, especially nowadays where every little thing is recorded and then multiplied in instantaneous type of form out there for everybody to not just to digest, but then to comment on. And so the amount of feedback and instant feedback that you get, I'm sure it can be incredibly daunting. So I bathe in it. I enjoy it. And none of us were ever successful without a healthy ego and a beautiful arrogance. And sometimes those words, you say those and people don't quite know what to make, but it is fuel for us. And once you're able to harness that fuel and recognize that, I think you can be the best version of yourself. But I don't expect anybody to be who I am, and I don't think other people expect me to try to be something that I'm not. There has to be in its core and in its essence, it has to be representative of who you are. And I do believe in my various incarnations, whether it's physical in terms of the optics that I portray, or the way that I just have carried myself, at its core, it is who I am. I'm an instigator. I am an irritant at times. I recognize that. I'm a provocateur, all of those different things, because that's kind of how I grew up. I love to debate. I love to have differing opinions with people, and I surround myself with people like that. But it can, at times, cause problems.
Yeah. But you got to be able to stand in that fire. Like, I think you recognize that. Just even recognizing, knowing that. I love what you said. That beautiful arrogance, and while still being authentic to who you are. You can't go out there and try and be something that you're not. And we come from that era. I was a big fan of Dennis Rodman's too, and that was huge when we were coming up in the '90s. and seeing him do all that stuff, for me, I shied away from that shit.
Yeah.
I was like, I can never do that. Right. That's just way too much, because that wasn't authentic to me. But for you, you're saying all this stuff was natural. But then not being afraid to do it. I think that, God.
But you also have to,
I had trouble
and
with
you
a
have
lot.
to back it up, okay? Because there's a real fine line, because if you are just a character, and if it's all about the way you look or the crazy things that you say or something like that, and then you don't bring it, then that's a problem. And when I say, and it doesn't just apply to sports, so because obviously in the sports, ultimately that the ultimate judge is when you step on that field, when you step on that court, when you step on that ice, when you step out there, there's a score, okay? And there is the world watching and asking you to perform. So I always recognize and reminded myself that as crazy or as flamboyant or as big of a personality as I or anybody is going to portray, you got to be able to back it up on the field. And sometimes, I'll admit, sometimes that balance got out of whack, and I had to either myself recognize it or have myself, or be surrounded by people and say, hey, guess what? You're screwing up now, and you need to get that balance back.
And, as I got older in my career, and even now in post-career, doing television, what we do now, my first 3 years, it was freaking scared, trying to measure, be calculated, don't go too far. Yeah. And then I'm like, you know what, screw this. Yeah. I just got to go out there. And that's how I did in my career. And that's when my career finally took off. Where it was just like, I'm not afraid anymore, and I'm just going to be me.
And that's what it is. It's really a fear, and it's a completely natural fear, and we all go through it, especially when we transition into television, where we're having to talk about things, and more importantly, talk about people, and you want to be respectful, and you have to let it go. And sometimes it's a matter of taking the time and before you let it go, before you can actually be so much more yourself and so much more honest, and recognize that if you're in this business to have people like you, have everybody like you, then you're not going to be in this business very long, because that's not the business that we are in.
Yeah, in the wise words of Mike Tyson, I had him on. He said he doesn't like people. That people, if you show me somebody that everybody likes, I don't like them, because that's not authentic.
Right. Well, I love people. I am incredibly social and gregarious. I enjoy it, and I enjoy going back and forth, and I enjoy debating, and I enjoy people that I disagree with, and it makes it so much more interesting. But as I said, sometimes it can be problematic. For example, I have kids. You have kids. Sometimes I will find myself pushing buttons, and my kids already know that, Dad, why can't you just relax, and why can't you just agree, or why can't you just take my side and stuff like that? So I've had to look at the way that I treat people, and the way that I react, and the way that I communicate, and sometimes dial it down or go in different directions.
Yeah, but I guess you can't have it that way. You can't have it where you can't be liked by everybody and be authentic, because you have opinions and you have ideas and thoughts that aren't going to match with everybody. So if you're trying to make everybody happy, you're in the wrong place. Yeah, especially in sports. Well, anything. Sports. I think anywhere in life.
Yeah, exactly. And it's okay. And look, it doesn't mean you go out of your way to be an asshole. All right, it doesn't mean that you're doing things just to be provocative, just because you know it's going to piss somebody off. I get asked all the time, do you believe the things that you say? And I tell everybody every single time I'm asked, yes, I do, because there is this belief that, and it just comes from a consistent diet of saying things at times that people disagree with. The reality is, though, when people disagree with you, those are the ones that you're usually going to hear. And the ones that agree with you, you usually don't hear with it. And oftentimes you'll find there's a whole lot more people that actually agree with you. Yeah. It's a whole lot easier, and it's a whole lot more direct and instantaneous when people are triggered at a certain moment and want to disagree with you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I mean, I could talk about this stuff all day. All right. Well, let's keep going. So you go to the Olympics, you have your success, you guys kick ass. And then after that, you go and try out for Arsenal.
So the Olympics were in 1992 in Barcelona. It was my first big tournament. I'll never forget being at the opening ceremonies, and Jennifer Capriati was sitting over to my right. She had no shoes on. I'll never forget. She had no shoes on. That was the Dream Team year, so they were all over the place. And Fidel Castro was up in the grandstand, and Nelson Mandela. It was just a wild type of experience. And so we finished off the Olympics, and now I'm playing in the Olympics. I'm playing on the international stage. So I have a pretty good idea that at least I'm going to try to be a professional soccer player. Well, that's easier said than done. So after the Olympics, I go and I try out for Arsenal, which is huge club in England. I spent about 3 or 4 weeks there over Christmas. I spent Christmas in a hotel room. You do what you got to do. Spent New Year's in a hotel room trying out for Arsenal. And at that point, while I had played in the Olympics, I was still nobody. I didn't have a name. I hadn't yet played in a World Cup, which ultimately a few years later would change my life. But I was just trying to hook on someplace. And ultimately it didn't work out, but it was a wonderful experience at a massive type of club. And for my first consistent experience in a culture that wasn't the United States, a soccer culture where soccer was king.
Yeah.
And that was a really weird experience to be thrown into a society and culture and country where you weren't just the soccer guy or soccer. Soccer was everything. And that's all that people did.
No, so Arsenal though is, for people out there that don't understand, like that's huge, right?
Yeah, that's like the Lakers, and when the Lakers were the Lakers and stuff like that. So it's a huge international club.
So that was something that obviously I got to believe that's like the ultimate goal if you're a soccer player anywhere on earth. That's where you want to be.
A lot of people, not so much today because they're like teams, they go up and down, but it's still just a huge brand and has always been a really successful club. Maybe not always with the wins, especially lately, but you say that and people take notice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I guess what I'm getting at here is if that being a dream of yours, was that tough when you didn't make it?
Yeah. When you don't make teams, when you don't make teams, and throughout the course of my life, there has been, like, we all go through tryouts, and you're either on one side or the other. I mean, I was more often on the side of making the team, but this is a tryout, it's an ultimate tryout, and they come to you and say it's just not going to work out. Mm-hmm. And like every athlete and every person, that stings, that hurts. Mm-hmm. And you have to have the belief in yourself and the confidence, and it's faith. It's not blind faith, but it's faith in your ability to take on whatever information they're giving you and become better. And also recognize that it's just one opportunity, and there will be others, but you have to recognize them. Those doors will open, and a lot about life and even a lot about sports is not just having the talent. There's a lot of talented people out there. Mm-hmm. It's about timing, and it's about whatever people and those doors opening, and you not just seeing those doors, but putting your foot in that door and keeping it open long enough for you to get in. And I, even at that time where I said, oh man, that's too bad, because at the moment you always think, oh my God, this is it. This is the end. Nobody's ever going to pick me up. And you got to be able to pick yourself up and say, all right, back to the drawing board. Where am I going to go next?
Did you have anybody that was helping you through that time?
Not really. I mean, part of growing up in that time in soccer has always been about, for better or worse, and for most of the part, it's better. It's been about kind of there was no template, there was no game plan, there was few people that had done anything or been through anything, so I couldn't bounce people off. I mean, I get young players all the time that come up to me now and ask me for advice, and I'm so happy that they recognize that and they can utilize that. I don't know if I'm giving them good advice, but at least there's people out there that they can talk to that I never had growing up. Mm-hmm. It's a much better environment right now. So I just kind of made it up as I went along.
Shit, that's pretty cool. I mean, people know on the show, I mean, when I went through my depressing moment of leading the NFL and drop passes and getting benched and going through that type of time, I believe, first of all, it makes you who you are. It hardens you for the next time. The bounce back is going to be so much better if you can bounce back. Yeah. Obviously, you bounce back in a tremendous way, but was there a book that you read or your mom or your dad were they saying, hey, it's going to be okay and you're going to get through this and it's going to be tremendous on the other side of this? Yeah,
I mean, I always had support, and I guess it goes back to the fact that I also, while I was going down this pathway of being a professional soccer player, since it was never predestined or preordained or anything like that, I always felt like if it doesn't work out, I'm not losing something that I had dreamt of from a young age. And I think that maybe helped out a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't want to be flip about it or anything, and I don't want to make it appear like I didn't appreciate it or anything like that. I just think that there was a reality that manifested because of the time I was living in, that I'm an American. in the late 80s, early 90s, and there's not a lot of opportunity. So there's certainly no shame if it doesn't work out. And if it doesn't work out, it's just a sign of the times.
Yeah.
And I would go back and finish. I was lucky enough and privileged enough to be able to attend a university, and I would go back and finish my education and go off and be do whatever I needed to do.
After that, right?
Huh?
Did you go to?
Well, first, so I came back after that, and then the '94 World Cup happened.
World Cup, yeah.
And that completely changed my life. I'm sitting in this chair today because of the power of what a World Cup can do. And that 1994 World Cup completely changed my life. It put me on stage in front of literally billions of people, opened up doors and gave me opportunities, gave me legitimacy that I then parlayed into an opportunity to go to Italy, because there's no way that they are hiring an American without actually having seen me be successful in front of the world at the World Cup. That kind of credibility comes only with being successful at a World Cup for an American.
And then when you get to Italy, what was that experience?
So it was a whole other level of soccer. So at that time, it's changed a tremendous amount. At that time, that was the place to be. That was where all the money, all the players, all the attention was. And so I was playing against the best every single week. I was also playing in the fishbowl that is Italian soccer, and having to adjust to a whole new culture, new language, so off the field, but also having to perform at the highest level and in front of a country that is obsessed with soccer. And I learned so much. I made plenty of mistakes along the way. I learned so much. I became a better soccer player, but once again, I became a better person for having gone through that experience in Italy.
Mm-hmm. And while you were going through all this, were you single at the time?
Yeah. Yeah, so
which helps. I gotta believe
yes,
a little bit.
It does. Sometimes I think back to some of the players that I played with and teammates that I had and that had kids and were married at an early age, and I can't imagine doing that. And more power to them, and they were able to do it. I always was amazed when some of the older players would get on the road. And, the younger guys who want to go out and do whatever. And they're like, I am going to bed. I am sleeping. I couldn't quite understand that. I would come to realize that and understand exactly what they were talking about later on in life. But yeah, I didn't get married until my 30s and didn't have kids until my 30s. Not by design. It's just the way that it all worked out. So yeah, I was in, all through the 90s, including my time in Italy. I was single. Yeah.
So Italy. By the way, you learned Italian too, right?
I did. So
you speak Italian, you speak Greek.
Yeah, I mean, I can get by with a lot of languages.
Spanish too,
so,
right?
Yeah. So I mean, you don't look. First off, it's 2020, and we live in Los Angeles, so you got to speak a little bit of Spanish and to function in our society, in our city, and certainly in our country in 2020. And so Spanish helps, but the game helped. I traveled all over the world. The game introduced me and provided me opportunities to travel all over the world, especially a lot of Central and South America, obviously the predominance of Spanish. And so you pick it up, and then you're playing with international players. And so there's language constantly flowing around the game, and you pick it up. The other part is when you go to someplace like Italy to play in Italy, First, I want to know what they're talking about. So I want to read the newspapers. I want to be able to watch television, see what the hell they're saying about it. And then there's the other element of you want to give yourself the best chance of success. And nothing garners more support and gives you more of a benefit of the doubt than learning the language quickly. And in Italy, they don't care if you mess it up as long as you're trying. And from the very day that I got there, the very first night I was there, the only player on my team that spoke English, I'll never forget sitting in the hotel room and conjugating verbs in Italian, just so I could get the basics down so that I could say stuff not just in passing or anything like that, but also do interviews. And eventually you get it, and it was sprinkled with Spanish and Italian and English and all that kind of stuff.
That's pretty incredible, though. I mean, you're speaking
incredible.
three languages.
It's out of necessity. It's out of necessity. So I may speak them, but I don't speak them that well. But it's out of necessity.
Oh man, I envy you. I played in the NFL, but basketball, I don't know if I could have. I think I could have played in the NBA, but if I didn't, I remember thinking, well, football doesn't work out and basketball doesn't work out, I'm just going to go play overseas.
Yep.
And it was because of that. I wanted to go play in Paris. I wanted to go play in Italy, Japan, or whatever. That would have been kind of cool to be on the world scene. But so anyways, You get done with Italy, and then the MLS is just starting out, right?
MLS starts, yeah.
I remember Lamar Hunt, our owner out in Kansas
peace.
City.
What an incredible gentleman.
Great guy. I remember they were starting. I got there in '97. I think it started just the year before.
Yeah, '96 started.
Yeah, '96. And we had our and you actually played for.
I played for Kansas City for a little bit. So I got done in Italy, and keep in mind that MLS, which started in '96, it's celebrating its 25th year. I can't believe it's celebrating its 25th year. It was off the backs of the '94 World Cup, and so there was that 2-year period before it started. And so I went and played in Italy, and a lot of us came back. And the reason why was we talked about having a league of our own, literally a league of our own, because it was a barren wasteland of professional soccer leagues for a number of decades. It wasn't that they weren't there, it was just they came and went, they were fly-by-night, there was folding. And this MLS league that was coming about was gonna be our league. And so a lot of us felt a real loyalty and a pride about coming back and starting that league. And one of the proudest moments of my life was when that whistle blew in 1996 to start off a league that, while we had cautious optimism, we recognized that the past was littered with leagues that didn't succeed, and so we wanted it not just to last for our careers, but last our lifetime, and that it's into its 25th year. I think it gives a lot of us that were there from the start great pride that it is doing that.
Yeah, and you played for Kansas City.
So I started in New England. With the Crafts. So there's a lot of marriage and connection when it comes to NFL and MLS. And so I started in New England, played for the Crafts, had a great time in New England. Then I went down to New York and played for what was then the Metro Stars. Then I went out to Kansas City and played for the Hunts out there. And then I finished my MLS career out in Los Angeles. So, and now there's a lot of NFL influence. Even the commissioner of MLS was actually working for NFL and NFL Europe. And now, he's going into his 21st year or whatever. So there's a lot of NFL influence. We played in a lot of NFL stadiums, especially initially before soccer stadiums started coming along. But it still is La Cosa Nostra. It's our thing, warts and all. It's not perfect, but it's also an incredible labor of love. And ultimately, a legacy that hopefully is going to continue to provide dividends to future generations.
Well, I read somewhere a while ago that soccer is the number one youth sport, right? Is that true?
Yeah, the youth part of it isn't the problem. It's getting people to watch it from a professional perspective. And this has always been the challenge that we have in the United States, is that it's a very, very different and ultimately incredibly unique sports landscape relative to almost every other culture that exists, where soccer is king. In the United States, soccer hasn't been and isn't king right now. And all the competition we have with all the other leagues and all the other sports and a limited type of history means that this is a constant effort to try to get people to turn it on, to be into it. And what we've done over the last 25 years, say, is pretty impressive and unprecedented when you put up against other sports and leagues, but we still got a long way to go. And it's always going to be unique. And we as Americans sometimes feel we have to apologize for what our soccer isn't. And that comes from an insecurity that we have, an inferiority complex. But we have a unique soccer culture, and we don't have to apologize for anything. And as I said, it's not perfect, and it certainly needs to grow, and it has its flaws. But I remain incredibly proud of all of the men and women that have worked for so long, and the men and women that we keep bringing into this tent for what we have created, because I think it's more discerning, I think it's more passionate, I think it's ultimately more interesting than most soccer cultures that exist around the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're a big part of, obviously, like you said, I'm sure you're incredibly proud of what you've done for the sport, but bringing in someone like Beckham back to that, I mean, that was huge. Honestly, I didn't grow up playing soccer. It wasn't my thing, obviously, but I remember that deal went down. Yeah. And going, wow, okay,
that's what we paid for.
They're getting serious. You guys paid the hell out of it.
Yeah,
that's good money.
We paid to have people like you take notice. And so I finished my career in 2003, was my last year. And you start to think, well, what the hell am I going to do? What's going on? And I was really fortunate. As I mentioned, I was playing in Los Angeles, and the ownership group there One door closes. I walked into the room because I wanted to keep playing, and the coach said, "Listen, it's not going to happen next year." And I said, "Well, is it because of money or roster spots?" Like, no, it has nothing to do with that. We're going in a different direction, right?
Oh,
every player at some point hears that, right?
Yeah.
And so I could have said, "All right, well, I'm just going to go try to bum and find another place to play." But one door closes, another one opens up, and another one opened up, and the ownership group in LA, which also owned teams up in New England and out in New York, called me in and said, "Listen, we have an opportunity for you up in San Jose." Sorry, in San Jose, not New England. Up in San Jose, and to go into the front office. And I did not take 2 seconds. I said, this is another thing. When young kids talk to me, but they're younger.
Yeah.
When they ask me questions, I say, "Listen, if you're going to try to orchestrate the end of your career to the perfect, ideal type of scenario, you're going to be one of a very, very small minority that's able to do that.
Yeah.
It never ends the way that you want it. If you are, consider yourself lucky. And if you see an opportunity for a jumping off point, okay, do it. Because while a career can be incredibly important and ultimately defining, it's still a very small portion of your life. And you hopefully are going to live that rest of your life and find things that excite you and do other things. But those opportunities and those doors won't necessarily open up on your timeline, and they won't always be able to be there when you want it. And so if you see an opportunity, think real long and hard about possibly making that jump. It might not happen when you want it, but ultimately you may look back and say, that jump, while I could have played a few more years, but I made that jump, and now I have something that's going to last me the next 20 years of my life. And it's not always easy to see, and it's sometimes easy to say, but that's some advice that I sometimes give off. I don't know if people recognize that. So that jump, I recognized I was at least smart enough in that moment to recognize this is a great opportunity. And so I went into the front office, and that lasted me for the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 7 years. Yeah.
Now, with that transition, because we talk about transition a lot on the show here, I went through it obviously when I retired. I know you said yes, and I did the same thing when I got the job at CBS. I was like, absolutely, I'll take this as an amazing opportunity. But still, I had a little trouble with that transition. Just because, why wouldn't I? I've never done it before. Was it easy for you? Was it tough? Did you ever find yourself going, "What the hell? Did I get in over my head here?"
Yeah. Well, two things were tough. One, just I think the inevitable inability to replace that feeling of playing.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing I tell young players: you will never ever be able to replace it because it's so unique. And that's okay, because you may find something that, while it doesn't replace it, it still gives you as much, and maybe if you're lucky, even more pleasure to do it. But it is an apples and oranges type of thing. And once it's gone, there is nothing in the world that replicates that. But there are other things in your life that can excite you and you can have a passion for, and can take you even further than playing. But first off, you got to get over that, and that takes a while to get up every day and say, "I'm not going to have that. I'm not going to have that smell, that feel, that relationship. Not just relationship with people, but that relationship with that sport that is you've been doing for the last 25 years or whatever it ends up being." So I had to get over that. The second thing was I went into a front office, and so you're in a corporate environment, which is a lot of people say. A corporate environment, it's just like a team, and you should, leadership and all those different things, they're just going to translate. No, if you go into a corporate environment and you treat it like a locker room, first off, you're going to get fired real quick. Okay,
Can't do that. Don't do that.
And you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
And so when I look back, I was 33 years old. I was very young. I had no experience. I made plenty of mistakes, but I don't regret it for a second because it taught me so many things. And I think back how I had an idea of what that type of person should be, how that person should talk, how that person should act. And it's understandable because you're kind of trying to make it up as you go along, and you're using whatever you've seen in the past as a template. And what you do is you lose who you are.
Yeah.
The reason why you're even in that position is because of the person that you are. Uh-huh. And so if I had to do it over again, and it's impossible, I would have taken more of who I was and that personality, and not tried to be something that I'm not at different times. But that's growth, that's growing, and that's experience.
That is so. But first of all, it crushes the average guy who does. I know it this way in the NFL. I mean, I've played with the guys, And I've seen them make that transition, and it does not usually go smoothly. It's tough. Yep. And like you said, you're trying to be authentic, but you're in this new role. And you're saying to yourself, man, I want to be like this. This is how I think I'm supposed to act, how I think. Yep. And you said, but then you're not being authentic to yourself. It's like a circle of confusion.
It is.
And the same thing.
And it doesn't mean you don't change.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you don't evolve, and it doesn't mean you don't learn. But it's just when I still see it today. Sometimes I'll see players that have just transitioned into different things, and it's not even necessarily something you can put your finger on, but there's a feeling that they are playing a part that they're not comfortable with.
Yeah.
And that performance that we've talked about, where I've told you it has to come from ultimately a genuine place. I don't think it's coming from a genuine place. And I can see that they are uncomfortable in this new skin. And until they get comfortable, then you're going to get the best out of them. Yeah. And sometimes it just takes time.
Takes time. And some guys, it never gets there.
It never happens.
It never gets there. And you see a lot of those guys with big names that make that transition. I'm sure we'll start talking about television here. You think just because you have a big name does not mean it's going to work for you. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's hard, but it's so simple. You know what I mean? It's like playing sports. Like, go out there, go catch the ball, or go kick the ball in that net. It sounds so simple, but it's really, really hard.
Very hard. And it's even harder to have to explain it to someone how to do it.
So what would you explain to the person who's out there having transition? If you were talking to them directly, like, hey, Alexi, I'm having trouble finding this authenticity inside myself. How do I find that?
Yeah, I mean, so first off, we come from a background of practice, right? Mm-hmm. Repetition, routine. So there is no substitute for that work ethic and the ability to learn, the ability to be prepared, the ability to be on time, all of those different things. Those kind of things, those can translate. Mm-hmm. And the ability, in a sporting environment, everybody understands that you might be the greatest player in the world, but if you don't have supporting cast and you don't have people surrounding you that are good, doesn't really matter. And so aligning yourself and surrounding yourself with quality and with people that you can learn from and people that can do the things to make you better, all of that is crucial. And not to be afraid to ask questions or to say you don't understand. Sometimes I remember being so self-conscious because there's jargon, there's etiquette, there is just a whole culture that exists when it comes to, especially the corporate world, that if you don't display that, you feel very left out, and so you're kind of faking it at times. And it's okay. It's okay. Nobody expects you to understand it all. And as a matter of fact, what I've found is when you do ask those questions, a lot of times they are questions that others have, or they have just never thought to ask those questions, or they were scared to death to ask those questions. So you not only will be doing yourself a service, but you will even indirectly, you will be doing others a service by asking those questions and having stuff broken down. Now, when it's broken down for you, though, you better get it. Like a coach, he or she's only going to tell you so many times, and if you can't get it done, you're going to get somebody else to do it.
Yeah. I'm listening here talking to you. You've opened up for Hootie and the Blowfish.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. That doesn't help in the corporate world, but
doesn't help in the corporate. But I think I always say this: like success to me it's an emotional thing. It's like an emotional feeling, meaning you got to be confident. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to be afraid, which is totally normal, and then go through it. Because I always say life takes off on the other side of fear. You got to be able to know your stuff, be prepared. Like all this goes into opening up for Hootie and the Blowfish. When those lights come on, I mean, people want good music.
Yep.
And so just like when you're on the field, when the lights come on, you got to go out there and you got to play good defense, offense, whatever's position you're playing. And then the same thing in the corporate world and the same thing in the television world. And you constantly, what it seems like you have no problem putting yourself in a fearful situation.
Well, I have
in
no
fact,
problem.
You thrive in
I
that.
don't want to fail. I don't go searching for opportunities to fail, but I also recognize that if I'm ever going to do anything, that that's a possibility. And believe me, it has happened. When it comes to music, the interesting thing is that it doesn't have to be good. It has to be really good, because it's automatically going to be taken down because you're you're the soccer player, you're the athlete. And this applies to athletes that do music, or actors that do music, or vice versa and stuff like that. If you're seeing a certain light, and so sometimes I want people not even to see it, just to actually hear it. And so I know that I have to be really good just to be good, because, and that's understandable, because there's a history of vanity projects and people kind of doing things that just have the ability to do it out there. I take music as seriously as anything that I've ever done, and it's something that I love. It's something that I have a passion for. But ultimately, all of these different things, I can fall flat on my face, and I've fallen flat on my face at different times. But I like that. People ask me about, do you get nervous when you go on television? Yeah. I'm worried if I'm not nervous. I love that feeling when that red light's about to turn on. Yeah. And the potential for me to completely screw up is there. I've learned to harness that, and I've learned to recognize if I don't have that feeling, then something is wrong. I want that feeling all the time. And I don't just want it when I'm on television. I want it in life. I want to challenge myself to being uncomfortable and being in situations that I haven't been in before, because I think that's where you get the good stuff. And ultimately, that's where you find out the most about yourself.
Oh, I love that right there. Seriously. Because to me, that's how I measure what my next move is, or whatever it is. I gotta, and I think when people come in here, the people that sit in this seat, they're not content with playing it safe. They're not going to say, okay, I'm going to go with the route that I think I'd be best suited for. Sure. And I want to stretch you seem like you want to stretch yourself, and you have no problem getting your ass kicked, I guess.
I don't. And look, I don't want to leave this earth anytime soon, but I recognize that there's going to come a day where someone's going to say, well, that's it. And I want to have tried as many different things as possible. And this isn't necessarily about jumping out of a plane or stuff like that. This is about testing yourself. This is about new experiences. And new experiences and testing yourself can be small little things. And it doesn't even have to be public. It could be private things, all of that kind of stuff. But I love that feeling of being on the edge. I love that feeling of it can go this way or that way. It can go very, very wrong, or it can go right. And maybe even go really, really right. And when it does, there's nothing like it. It is addictive. You want that. And I know that there's an ego part of me and almost a narcissistic part of me that craves that performance and that moment of interaction when things can go wrong. I've recognized that from when I was a kid that I need that. There's probably a psychologist out there that can psychoanalyze me and tell me why that ultimately is. I don't necessarily need it to validate who I am. I just know that that's what gets my juices flowing. That's what I love, and that's what I want to do.
Yeah, well, I think this probably goes without saying, or maybe people out there haven't recognized, but that's the only way to be great at something. I mean, anybody who's done anything that's been spectacular, it's about pushing your boundaries and loving being on the edge of failure. Yeah, like knowing that it could all fall apart. There's something really, really cool about that feeling. And we talked about fear a little bit. Is failure as important as winning to you?
Like I said, I don't think you should make a habit of failing. And maybe if you are failing, either you're not doing what you should be doing, or you're not doing it right. But I mean, we all know. I mean, and this isn't a TED Talk or anything like that, but we all know that failing can be incredibly beneficial, because it forces you to re-examine what you did, or who you are, or the things that you're going to do, and it makes you adjust going forward. And so, and even as we mentioned, the potential to fail is powerful. And can drive you. And I'm constantly looking looking for that. And even in the work that we do, where there is that bombardment and that instant reaction from everybody out there, because now everybody has a megaphone and a platform from which to tell you how much you suck.
Yeah.
Even within that, I look at that edge and the potential for this to go very wrong, or even when it goes right, for the potential for people not to like it and all that kind of stuff. And I eat that up, and I don't expect everybody to do it the same way or feel the same way or want that. I recognize that can probably for some be incredibly debilitating, and I don't know why, but I'm wired where it fuels me.
You're sick, man. Well, you talked a little bit about it there with social media. Mm-hmm. You're a big voice on Twitter. You like that. Mm-hmm. Do you read all the negative tweets coming back to you? But you have no problem. I could never do that. All those people out there that tweet me negative stuff. Guess what? I don't read it. Because it gets to me.
I know, and I completely respect that, and I at times I wish I was like that. As I said before, that whole punk ethos of go ahead, spit, throw. I don't really care. It just makes me stronger. It is, and I've never blocked anybody. People have said horrible things, and whether it's death threats or all that kind of just horrible stuff. That's all because I look at it in a strange way, almost as a video game. I play Twitter in that the reaction that you get from me and the reaction that I get from you, once again, is a give and take. We've kind of signed up for that, and if I don't want it, then I turn it off. Now I recognize that Twitter is a bad focus group. It is if you're basing how you live your life and the things that you do in your life on Twitter, then you're not living a full life and you're having problems, and you're going to have problems. And I don't ever want to do that. So I look at it as just a small part of the brand or whatever we want to call that out there. But I love it. I enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing. Obviously, not that I can't handle it. I don't know why. I just like I can't even pay that anymore.
But that's people, understanding what you need in order to function as a human being. That's huge. I mean, to have that's self-awareness, and that can show up and manifest in a billion different ways. And so that's important for you. That's maturity. Uh-huh.
Were you like that when you played? Did you talk a lot of shit to people?
I mean, I think about what it would have been like if Twitter and social media had been around when I played, and I sometimes think about how would I have gone through that, where just in the palm of my hand was this megaphone to say stuff, because a lot of the stuff and I mean, can you imagine the stuff that we did if it was videoed and photographed and tweeted about, on a consistent basis? I recognize that it probably makes you change the way that you go about living your life as an athlete right now. But
so you talk trash to people.
Yeah, sure.
And you're an emotional guy.
I am an emotional guy. Yes.
Would you say you're sensitive?
Yeah, I'm a lover, not a fighter. That's for sure.
Like, I mean, if somebody said something to you on the field, could you ever just let it go, or were you like, I have to react because that? That's what I say. When people react, I'm like, you're sensitive.
It would depend. Like the only time you couldn't say anything to me that would make me see red and I'd lose it. What always used to bother me was when something was said that lacked wit or wasn't clever. I said, I mean, if you're gonna take the time, anybody can F you, right? I mean, anybody can do that. But it's kind of benign. It just boom, boom, boom. But when somebody actually said something that had required some research or some understanding, there was depth and nuance to it. Ability for somebody to do that in that moment, that's beautiful. And that gets my attention. And
you almost respect it. You're like,
absolutely, I respect. You got me on that one. That is a good one, and whether, it had to do with something that I had done or said or, whatever, the way I looked or something, that kind of stuff, that's the way to do it, and so.
I love it. I think back when guys, I think I'm more like you. I never really responded when I was playing, because I felt like it took me out of the game. But I definitely know players, like, they love that. Like someone like Richard Sherman.
Yeah.
Like he loves that. Like bring it on. All you're doing is fueling me. And you're probably getting that when you get to Twitter. When you start getting into these Twitter wars with people, it's like, oh, this is great.
It is.
I love it.
And I grew up in a household that was you were required to defend your side, and there was a lot of debate, and you had to take other sides, and you had to look at people at different arguments from somebody else's shoes, and look at things from different angles. And so that challenge type of culture was something that I grew up with. And so that's probably why I gravitate to a lot of the challenges and the debates and the back and forths that I do. Because my wife will say, why do you even bother? Why do you even give people time? Why should you? You're making their day by doing that. So why are you doing that? They're getting a rise out of you. And like I said, I enjoy doing it. It's a game.
Yeah.
It's a game to me.
Yeah, I love it.
Until they show up on your doorstep.
Yeah, well, the whole death threat thing. Jeez, that's scary.
Yeah.
Talk about your health habits. Obviously, you played a long time. Are your body feeling pretty good?
I'm good. I'm turning 50 this year. I constantly run.
You run a lot, like miles a week?
Yeah. I
Isn't
run.
that good for your knees? I thought that's not good for your back.
It's
and your
not
knees
good. As a matter of fact, when I go for my yearly physical, each and every time my doctor says, you can't keep this up. So I tried swimming. So I never grew up swimming. I can swim. You throw me in a pool, I'm not going to drown. I can swim. But have you ever swum for exercise? So I tried it for the first time because obviously it's no impact, and I was looking for some other things to do. And I get in this pool, and I go one lap down there, and I think that they're going to have to call a doctor and pull me out of the pool. I said, this is how it's going to end. I'm going to die in the deep end of this pool here. And there are 80-year-olds going up and down because it is a completely different set of muscles, and the breathing part of it was incredible. So I've tried to get into swimming, but for the most part, I run, and I run a lot, and I recognize that it's limited, and the end is coming, and so I'm going to have to do swimming and that kind of stuff.
You live by the beach now. You can
That's true.
Maybe you can surf or something like that. But what about infrared sauna, cold therapy? You do it like biohacking? Anything?
No, I haven't done any of that. I haven't done that. I guess I'm old school. Running and vodka. Yeah.
Running and vodka. Those are good. I like tequila.
Yeah.
What about food? Nutritional
regimen? I don't have a regimen. I don't have a regimen.
Intermittent fast or anything like that?
I did a fast for a day. A juice fast for a day.
For a day.
Right, yeah. Well, I wanted to see what it was like, right? I had to test the waters. There was a guy I was working with at Fox who was like on a week-long one.
Yeah, a day's good. That's hard. A 24-hour fast is...
Well, all they gave me was juice to drink, man. That's not going to suffice for the day. So,
well, it's a fast.
I know exactly. The whole point of the fast was lost on me, and once I realized that I wasn't going to get anything to eat, I don't.
It's really healthy.
I know it's healthy. So I have my vegetables. I try to be balanced and all that kind of stuff. I love sushi and that kind of stuff. Fish, love all that kind of stuff. But I wish I could give somebody the regimen. Or a good regimen, but I don't.
Well, you look like you're in good shape.
I try. All I do is run. That's it. That's what I do. I run a lot. So
if you ever think about fasting, there's an app called Zero.
Okay.
That's will really help you. It'll organize it and all that stuff. I always say it's fasting.
But it's like a juice fast or just a fast?
They have all these different types. You can do a 24-hour intermittent fasting, 3-day, 5-day. I've never done that. I'm going to do it sooner or later.
What's the longest you've done?
24 hours.
24 hours.
And I do that every so often. Like every 3 weeks, I'll do a 24-hour fast.
No juice, no nothing. Just nothing.
Nothing. Just coffee in the morning.
Okay.
And that's it.
And then you're good to go.
Eat until that
now,
night.
when you wake up that next day, are you famished or it's pretty much normal?
So I do it. I eat dinner that night, and then I won't eat until dinner the next night.
Okay. So there's no sleep in between before you wake up. Okay.
Yeah. Sleep.
The sleep after you eat, though.
Sleep after you eat, though. Sleep. And I'm big on sleep, too. Are you a sleeper?
Yes, I am a big sleeper.
So you get your good amount of sleep?
Yes.
Yeah.
I talk sleep and hydration.
Sleep and hydration.
The first words I taught my kid was hydration. Yep.
First word?
Words that I tried to tell my kids was hydration. They'll tell you. They're like, oh, Dad, with the hydration. Hydration, key to life. You got to hydrate. Hydrate.
Okay. Not mom or dad or anything?
Nope, it was hydration.
Hydration, son.
Exactly.
What's a musical artist or band that you love to jam with or make music with?
Jam. So I grew up in...
They can be living or dead, too.
Yeah. So I grew up in the 80s, and I first started off on all the classics, so it's the Beatles and Zeppelin, and then it moved into Van Halen and Kiss, and then it was a whole 80s metal thing, so Rat and Bon Jovi and Poison and Def Leppard and Warrant and Skid Row and all those different things. But I was also listening to Neil Young and Tom Petty and John Mellencamp and then going into like the Lemonheads and Third Eye Blind in the 90s and all that kind of stuff. I'm a huge 80s metal guy. So like a band called Rat, which is my favorite band ever. I love them. I see them constantly. I don't know. There's
Round
something
and round, right?
Yeah,
Round.
and it's just something that hits you when you're at the right age, and it's just never gone away. I love it. I love it so much. The music that I do is nothing like that. Mine's much more pop rock type of stuff. It's based, starts on acoustic guitar usually, and then morphs into a more of an electric and band sound and stuff like that. But just your influences find different ways through that. So that would be someone.
Very cool. By the way, do you write your own music?
Oh yeah,
and you play the guitar?
Sing, play guitar. I program
guitar.
all this stuff. Nowadays, you can do so much stuff alone. So I keep putting out the albums for all three of the people that want them, including my mom, and it's I just love to do it, and so.
That's good. You're like a Renaissance man.
I don't know about that.
I get you. Writing book? You write any books or anything?
I haven't. I tried writing a book once, and then I said, well, I'm not done yet. And so I like to think that there's some more chapters.
Poetry or anything?
I did some poetry. My mom's the poet, so she does all of that. She's in a whole nother level than I am. So, but lyrics are basic poems anyway. So.
Very cool. Yeah. What's your last meal on earth?
I think I would do a sushi. I love me a unagi, eel. I love eel. I don't know why. I never grew up having sushi. I probably didn't have sushi until my mid-20s or something like that. And then I was so angry at my parents for never having it in Michigan, not the sushi capital of the world.
Yeah,
let's say. But yeah, so it would probably be sushi, and then some ice cream, but also I am a connoisseur when it comes to red licorice. And I don't differentiate between red vines and Twizzlers. I don't care. I know that's sacrilege to some people, but I don't care. As long as it's red licorice, I will eat it. And then nectar of the gods, Slurpees. Slurpees. I'm a traditionalist, so it's either Coke or cherry, but I'm a cherry side. No mixing. None of the other
suicide,
stuff.
Huh?
None of that kind of stuff. Straight up cherry Slurpee, and I will do anything that you ask of me if you give me a cherry Slurpee.
Cherry. I haven't heard that word in a while.
There you go. It's probably not on your fast diet over there or anything like that. It's probably not included in that.
Yeah. So sushi. So sushi, red vine, Slurpee.
Yeah.
Said one more thing.
Some ice cream. I'd probably have some ice cream. Yeah,
ice cream.
I definitely have some ice cream.
So you're going to serve
coffee
that?
ice cream. I don't drink coffee, but I love coffee ice cream.
Wow. There's a little quandary there.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
What would and who would you eat that with? Give me three people in history, living or dead.
History? Literally in history? Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Living or dead?
Let's see here. My goodness. Well, the usuals. What do people say with the usual, right? It's like God and that kind of stuff, or Jesus and.
Yes, we've had a couple Jesus.
Yeah, a couple Jesus.
Anybody living or dead?
He sounds like he'd have some good stories, right?
Yeah, a lot of stories.
So, he likes wine.
Yeah.
Right? I like wine. So that sounds like a good start.
So him. Who else?
So
got
him.
two more slots.
Oh my goodness. Two more slots. Let's see here. I'd probably do some musical type of stuff. So Elvis would be kind of cool.
Elvis.
Okay. He likes food.
That's a first.
He likes
food.
I think that would be a cool thing. I'm trying to get like an eclectic type of thing.
Yeah, you want to have a good time, good dinner.
I got Jesus. I got Elvis. I think I need something, like somebody more technical, like an Einstein. There we go. There we go. That would be three people that I would chill with at dinner. I think that would be good.
Yeah. Eat your Twizzlers and your sushi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can imagine Einstein having a Slurpee? That would be good.
That would be funny. What moment would you like to relive? If you could.
If
You
I
know what
could,
Yeah.
I mean, we talked earlier about how the 1994 World Cup came to define me and changed my life, and so it was a wonderful summer. So I mean, it would be fun to go. I don't have a great memory of things. That's one of the reasons why I wish social media also had been around, because it is almost a diary.
Yeah.
And I don't have that. My diary is much more in the music and in the songs, and therefore it's not as the clarity isn't there that sometimes exists when you're able to take constant pictures. I don't have a lot of memory of that summer, other than it was very, very epic and important in my life.
Do you read a lot of books? You're a reader?
I am a reader. I haven't read.
What's your favorite book? What book would you recommend to somebody?
My favorite book?
Yeah.
I mean, the classics. So like Kill a Mockingbird and these types of things. Watership Down, these stuff like that. I am a huge like biographies and stuff like that. So music bios, are always good. So that kind of stuff. Yeah. Right. I mean, I watch constant documentaries. There's a great documentary from Mike Wallace, who you may have remembered from 60 Minutes. And it actually is interesting. We were talking earlier about performance on television and being in front of the camera and stuff like that. You should really check it out, because it's really interesting to hear him talk about, especially from an interview's perspective, and how he approached interviewing people and how he approached his performance on camera. I saw it just the other day. I can't remember what the actual name of it, but you can find it out there. It's Mike Wallace, because our job, obviously, and I don't know if you found this going through it, but we find a lot of people that are kind of just going through the motions, in that they're using it as a way station until something better comes along, waiting for coaching job or front office job or whatever it ends up being. And you can get away with that for a little bit, but ultimately I think it manifests itself in your performance. Yeah. And you're cheating yourself and you're cheating the viewer. And I love what I do. I'm a junkie for television. I don't want to do anything else. People constantly are asking me, do you want to do anything else? And I love what I'm doing, but I know you asked me about what book I read, and I went off on a tangent there. No, but I just think about that performance and what we do, and I guess it applies to anything in life. You want to be surrounded by people that are as invested and as passionate as you are about what you're doing. You want to be surrounded by junkies that live for it and want to do it and want to get better at it.
You kind of answered this question right there. What's the legacy you want to leave behind?
That hopefully I helped the game that I know and love. I mean, ultimately that's it. I was in Nashville this weekend. A brand new MLS team just came online. 60,000 people in the stadium in Nashville, Tennessee, and it warmed the cockles of my redheaded heart to see that. And when I see what soccer has become, and without a doubt has a long way to go, but when I see what it's become. And that I played a small little part in it, and hopefully can continue to play a small little part in it. There is a community and a family of soccer in the United States. It's no longer niche. It's no longer underground. It's above ground. It's vibrant. It's discerning. It's passionate, and it's unique and it's different. And it makes me incredibly proud that it exists, and that I've been in this game for many, many decades now. And I've seen the way that it's changed. And hopefully when I'm dead and gone, it will continue to grow and continue to get bigger and bigger, because it gives people something really unique and different in terms of their sports landscape. And that international aspect of it, I think at times when sometimes we can get so closed into what we are, and I remain incredibly proud of being from what I think is the greatest country in the world, in the United States. I also recognize and respect that we are part of a global community. And that global community, soccer is that thread. And so that's what attracted it to me as a young boy. And I think that's what's going to fuel it going forward, in particular, and how it grows in the United States.
Nice, sweet. Last question. What's one area of your life that you'd like to improve in, that you're wide open to learning more about?
The way I interact with my family. I don't know if you get this, but because of what we do on television and that performance aspect of it, you have to be able to separate the two. I mean, sometimes my wife will say, "You're not on television right now," and it's important. It's important because the way that you interact and that you talk with your family and your kids, it has to be different than the way that I'm interacting and talking right now, and this performance that's going on right now. And you have to save something different and special for them. And I'm working on that. I'm working on being better at that. I'm not horrible at it, but I'm working on being better at that, because as much as I love television and as much as I love the things that I do, there's nothing above the relationships that you have, whether it's your family or whether it's your friends, and those real, authentic, genuine types of interactions that you have. And if you taint those or hurt those in any way because you don't have that ability to interact in a genuine way, then you're missing out. And I don't want to miss out on that.
Love it. Thanks for coming on, bud.
Thank you. Good luck. Good luck with this.
Yeah, thank you.
This is great.